The episode Court of Honor on Star Trek was called by many members of the cast a racist piece of shit. Now, this episode is just as bad or even worse. Why the heck did anybody think a witch doctor plot on Night Gallery would do anything but draw ire? It's called Logoda's Heads. Now, according to David Jewell's blog on the series, you wouldn't think a story about an African witch doctor would be a Night Gallery strength, and you'd be right. Now, he gave it 1.5 stars, I gave it 0 stars. Actually, the teleplay was by Robert Bloch of Psycho fame with a story by August Derleth. Directed by Jean Schwartz, with the great Patrick Macnee as Major Crosby, the great Brock Peters as Logoda, Denise Nichols as Cairo, Tim Madison of Animal House fame as Henley, Albert Popwell as Sergeant Imo, Zara Cully as Emba, and Roger E. Mosley as a second as Carrie. So it's a good cast. Now, this is one of the worst Night Gallery segments, according to Jewell, not part of the group of generally dreadful comic blackout sketches, marked by poor acting, unconvincing set design, and mainly a terrible script adapted by again by Robert Bloch, of all people. Now, the syndication adds superfluous minutes, and that made it worse. Now, in some jungle in some African country in some part of the colonial period, presumably, British military officer Major Crosby is taking a young American Henley to see a tribal leader who may know something about the recent disappearance of Henley's brother, an anthropologist, and Matheson is this. Gives a rough performance, even though McNee is common as usual. First, they have to get through the dancing Emba, Zara Cully, yes, Mother Jefferson, the Jeffersons a few years later, who lets them know that Logoda will grudgingly see them. When he enters his hut, Logoda, Brock Peters, playing a stolid character, doing what he can to give this role some dignity, denies that he's being seen Henley's brother. Major Crosby treats him with respect, but Henley seems to want to threaten him to get the information he's after. A young woman from a neighboring village, Cairo, Denise Nichols, always beautiful, enters the hut and confirms the two white men's fears, that Henley's brother is indeed dead. She says Henley's brother was in the village 10 days before, and when he heard of Logoda's collection of shrunken heads, he ventured out to find the witch doctor. She indicates a curtain-off room where Logoda's collection of heads are, and Crosby gets Logoda to allow him and Henley to accompany the man inside the room, though not before Logoda threatens Cairo with a curse if she says any more. There he finds a string of shrunken heads along a bar. Henley searches for his brothers but does not find him, or it. Then Logoda begins chanting and the heads begin swaying. This is actually somewhat of a chilling scene. The head's motion stops and Logoda informs the white man that he's divined from the heads that Henley's brother drowned in a nearby river. The white men prepare to leave, and Cairo begs them to take them back to, presumably their British colonial base, for protection from Logoda's threat. There she insists on an armed guard at her bedroom door, which Crosby grants. The next morning, Cairo awakens alive and well, but a messenger comes to inform them that during the night Logoda was murdered. We get a cringe-inducing cutaway to Cairo casting her eyes down at this news, thus telegraphing her guilt in the matter. Now, Crosby, Henley, and Cairo return to Logoda's village to investigate what has happened, and what Crosby finds is Logoda's body torn apart as if by wild animals. Cairo intones solemnly, "There were no beasts, Major, only my magic." She knew Logoda killed Henley's brother, but could not prove it, so she dished out some justice, Night Gallery Africa style, which in this case is a lame, heavy-handed, and borderline racist trope. "I knew Logoda could make the head speak," she adds. "I know how to make them kill." Even if we assume that this well-intentioned segment, according to Jewell, it does not come off as paternalistic at best and racist at worst, and beyond that, is weak dramatically. Peter tries to make his character less than a character, and McNee's character shows some respect, but it's probably not an area that Night Gallery should attempt to enter. Now, in the indispensable Rod Serling's Night Gallery, an after-hours tour, Scott Skelton, I guess he interviewed Tim Madison and he admitted that his debacle is one of the things that made me decide I'd better learn what I was doing, so at least there is some good that came out of this. That we can thank it for Matheson's fine performance as Eric Stratton in Animal House in 1978, and of course his great performance in 1941, the Spielberg comedy. Now, the big problem I have with this episode is because If you did an episode of Canadians, Indian Canadians, and you had, like the different races tropes, if you're a black person in the 1970s, no offense, this ain't the 1950s anymore. You're still doing, Brock Peters was a very handsome, very talented actor. Make him play a witch doctor. How come it could be a white witch doctor? Spin it a little bit differently. How come all this in Africa, all the evil perpetrated by black people, couldn't it be mixed race? Could it be like a white man that's learned the ways of evil and he's doing kind of stuff? Like I said, it's totally racist. And you see, the thing is, you still had people in charge of NBC and a night gallery that weren't catching on. Now, Sidney Poitier was accepted, and Diane Carroll was accepted, and Bill Cosby was accepted, for the Emmys and stuff like that. But there was still, a disconnect. Sometimes, like for example, the Waltons, it was sort of an apologist for the way black people were treated in TV, and he had recurring black characters. They didn't add anything to the plot, but at least you tried. But what Logoda said, it's a piece of shit. There's no other way to say it. Now, in syndication, I guess they added additional atmospheric music and throwbacks and stuff like that. Doesn't make it any better. When you're dealing with anything involving black culture that's not of your culture and you're just doing a parody of it, is dangerous. I don't even know why this episode is still shown in syndication or even was allowed to be released. It's just as bad as Uncle Tom's Cabin, in my opinion. Anyway, 0 stars out of 4. And if you like what we're doing here with our Night Gallery podcast and our Serling podcast, then let us know with a like, comment, and subscribe. And I think Rod Serling never said it, but he probably would say it. I would never write something like this. I would throw it out before I even started it. Thanks for listening. Bye.